Welcome to Being Boss, a podcast for creatives, business owners, and entrepreneurs who want to take control of their work and live life on their own terms. I'm your host, Emily Thompson, and in this episode, I'm joined by Natalie Walstein of Soulshine Astrology to talk about finding your cosmic calling using your astrological birth chart to find alignment in the work that you do. You can find all the tools, books, and links we reference on the show notes at www.beingboss.club. And if you like this episode, be sure to subscribe to the show and share us with a friend. Ready for another podcast recommendation for your queue? When you're done here with this episode, I suggest you check out the Success Story podcast hosted by Scott D. Clary, brought to you by the Hubspot Podcast Network. Success Story features Q&A sessions with successful business leaders highlighting conversations on sales, marketing, business, startups, and entrepreneurship. Just recently, I tuned into an episode with Kara Golden, founder of Hint, on living an undaunted life by overcoming doubt and doubters. As an entrepreneur and podcaster, I so appreciated the stories of her deep curiosity and how she used it to pursue her passions unapologetically. Discover Scott's podcast, Kara's episode, and more by taking a listen to the Success Story podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. As a career astrologer at Soulshine Astrology, Natalie Walstein blends ancient astrological wisdom with modern down-to-earth guidance to help creative souls and spiritual seekers discover their cosmic calling and align their life and career with the cosmos. She is the author of a new book called Find Your Cosmic Calling, a guide to discovering your life's work with astrology. Natalie, welcome to Being Boss. I am so excited to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited too.
My pleasure. My pleasure. To give everyone just a little bit of, background, you had me on your podcast several years ago. You have a podcast called Soulshine Astrology. I'm an astrology nerd, which may not be something that everyone who listens to this knows. So whenever I got the opportunity to be interviewed for yours, I think whenever you emailed me, I was like, I will never forget that interview. It was one of my favorites I have ever had.
Yay, that makes me so happy. I try to make them fun because I try to read the charts of all my guests so they get something out of it besides just helping me out with my episode content.
Yeah, it was so much fun. It was such a fun chat. So whenever you emailed me and told me, one, that you had a book coming out, I think you just offered to send me a book, and I was like, yes, and I would love to reciprocate. Come on to my show and let's talk about this amazing book that you created. But before we dive into that, I'd love to always give everyone a context of the person that we are talking to. So if you wouldn't mind kicking us off with sharing your entrepreneurial story, sharing with us how it is that you got to where you are now.
Yeah, so thank you. I'm a career astrologer, so I help people find their calling using astrology and turn it into their career. And I really started getting into this because I didn't know what I wanted to do with my career anymore. And I got into this really confusing place because I had always wanted to be a graphic designer since I was probably 8 years old. I didn't even know that was graphic design, but I liked making art on the computer. And so that's what I did. I followed that path. I went to art school, and even in art school, I would slack off and study tarot and astrology. But it didn't click for me that was what I was meant to do for a much longer period. I had been running my design studio for about 5 years, and I was working with female entrepreneurs mostly all over the world on their branding and web design and things like that. And I was getting frustrated because people weren't using my work. I would go through the whole process of creating everything for them. They'd be super excited about it. And then they would never update the website ever again, even though I made great tutorials. And so I just felt like I wasn't making a difference. And I really wanted to. I love making things pretty. But what I really wanted was for these people to just take off in their businesses with my graphics as part of that. But they didn't really know what they were doing. And so I was lacking in inspiration. And so I moved to Hawaii actually in 2015 from Minnesota. where it's very cold. And I was like, I just want to be inspired again. And I thought that would help kick it off. But actually what happened is everything fell apart, and I was engaged at the time, and we were like kind of falling apart. I was having trouble finding a place to live there. I had to live on like an off-the-grid lava shack for 3 months with no running water. And I ended up getting really sick from that. So, so basically everything was falling apart. And then this is on top of like not really liking what I was doing anymore. And so I was reading my horoscope every day, and it was telling me things were going to be okay. And it was giving me hope. And I didn't know how it worked or why it worked, but there was something to it that was just like getting me through. So I decided to learn more about astrology and dive into my astrology chart, which I didn't know you even had, where you have a whole birth chart where all the planets were when you were born. And I learned about mine from taking classes. And I found out I was actually meant to help people on a deeper spiritual level, which sounded really cool, but I didn't know how to do that, even though it was staring me in the face. And so I basically ended up using my astrology chart to help me with my career. And I went through all the points, and I realized, oh my gosh, astrology is helping me with my career. It could help other people with theirs. And I actually looked up in a book that there's a certain time when you find your calling. And I ran to my chart, looked it up, and it was happening for me that week. And it only happens every 12 years. So I was like, okay, this is it. This is what I'm doing now. And luckily I had a lot of experience in launching businesses. That's what I had been doing. So I just put that into a new business and totally changed my life. Everything that was falling apart, I fixed. I ended my relationship. I started this new business, and now I've been helping people tap into their astrology charts for the last 5.5 years, worked with hundreds and hundreds of people to decode what they're meant to do and see where they're out of alignment so that they can feel excited about what they do. And that turned into a book now. So that's kind of where I'm at today.
That is a whirlwind of magic. I love that story. Okay, so graphic design business online, correct?
Yes.
So very early years of online business, it sounds like, right?
Relatively, yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful. Also completely connect with that feeling of designing things and no one using them. That's one of the reasons why I also left that behind. One of the many reasons why I left that behind. So totally resonating with that for sure. Moved to Hawaii. Did you take your business with you, or were you still doing your graphic design business as you made this move?
Yeah, that was kind of the perk, is I could work from anywhere in the world. And so I'm like, why am I here in Minnesota where it's freezing? Besides my family, of course.
Where are you now?
I'm in Hawaii again. So I actually left Hawaii and then moved back. So I kind of reinvigorated my experience.
Perfect. Because that's sort of I feel like you don't get the idea just do something. You don't get the idea and then the follow through to do something like pick up everything and go to Hawaii usually, or move to Hawaii unless there's a nugget there. So I love the idea that you did it, maybe not the right time, maybe not the right setting for you to be there, and that you had to leave and then come back for it to feel good. I want to talk a little bit about that transition between old business and new business. So graphic design business and then moving into astrology, because I feel like it's a story I hear often with creatives. They get bitten by the bug, right? The entrepreneur bug. They figure out that they can do this thing, but it's not usually in the form that it's meant to be. Right? It's usually some low-hanging fruit or using a skill that you have paid to have developed within yourself or whatever it may be. So for you, it was graphic design. But there's this transition phase from what you were doing to what you need to be doing. I'd love to talk about that a little bit. You talked about it sort of being something that you read in your birth chart, but what did that feel like? What was that process for you of okay, I see it in my birth chart, but do I really want to do this thing, this transition from something like graphic design into something like astrology? Can you just shine a light on that transition a little bit?
Yeah, it was really hard because I felt crazy It's kind of a weird thing to do for a living, and I'm like giving up everything for it. But the thing is, I had almost died from being sick. Like I thought I was on my deathbed, and like this was right after I learned astrology, and I was really scared that I wasn't going to be able to share it with people. So when I was going into the business, I was like on this crazy mission to share it with the world. And so there weren't a lot of doubts. Like I could even see in my chart I meant to do it. So it's just kind of a matter of doing the work. But as far as like finances go, like I was at rock bottom. I couldn't work for quite a while because I was sick. And so I did have to do both for a while. Like I still had clients emailing me for things and had to kind of crisscross both of them at the same time. And it probably took about a year before I was like actually established in my new business. So I always like to tell people that because they're like, oh, you could just start a business from scratch and be successful. But it does take time to build trust and also to feel out what is like the best way for you to do your work. So I definitely had that like sticky middle side of things that I had to go through to get through to where I wanted to be.
Right. Sticky middle, but also it sounds like utter confidence in this part of your process, correct?
So much confidence, which was weird because I had been really shy. And all of a sudden I'm like, watch out, world. Like I'm doing this thing. And I would never want to be on a video call. I would never have a podcast. I would never even want to talk on the phone with my clients before. So that's like the greatest thing about astrology, I think, is it just validates you and confirms who you are so that you can confirm it and validate yourself and just run with it.
Wonderful. Oh, that's a really magical story. Thank you for sharing that for sure. I want to talk about astrology a bit because you mentioned several pieces along the way. This idea that you were using your horoscope to sort of bolster you during an incredibly difficult time. You tapped into your chart. It sounds like literally at just the right time for you to sort of see the signs that you needed to see to move forward. And now you are working in astrology professionally. So what was that sort of, what was that love affair with astrology like? And what were some of the tools that helped you learn along the way? Or maybe some of those like little synchronistic moments that really proved to you that that this astrology thing works?
Yeah, it was coming from all directions because I actually happened to move to the island in Hawaii where they take pictures of space. And there's no streetlights at night, so it's like incredible. So it's kind of weird that I moved there, first of all, because it's in the middle of nowhere. It's not like the place you would normally move if you're going to move to Hawaii, most likely. But it was cheaper. And then also, just from learning the classes, I noticed that I would like challenge my teachers. And I'd be like, that's not how I would say that. Or I would say this a much more easy way or something like that. So I started to notice like I had this little cockiness about it, even though I just started learning. And then as I did start like reading more astrology charts from my friends and family, it started to really click on this deep level that I couldn't explain. And it was really eerie, actually. Like I could feel the symbols, and just one little symbol would just open up all these visions. And I started to realize I had actually been prepping to do it my whole life. And it's just finally coming up. So that's why I believe your calling is like already like created for you to step into over your life. And it just like whispers to you over and over again. Like astrology had whispered to me over and over again, but I didn't think I was cool enough or good enough at it. I didn't know how anyone learned this stuff. I just didn't think it was like for me, like a little old me, like. So luckily my chart was like, yes, little old you.
Indeed.
I kept going.
I love it. Perfect. Then let's talk about this calling, this cosmic calling. This is, the name of your book is Find Your Cosmic Calling, A Guide to Discovering Your Life's Work with Astrology. This is something you've talked about several times. You were a career astrology. What is it about career that hooked you? And let's talk about what your cosmic calling is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so when I was reading my astrology chart, I saw I had 5 planets in Capricorn, which is the career sign. Essentially, they're like go-getter, CEO type people, and 5 is a lot, by the way. So I knew I didn't want to just use this information for fun, just be like, ooh, let's find out about ourselves. But I wanted to actually turn it into something you could use in your everyday life and your work to actually help you move forward. And that's been a passion for me for a long time. Is like, I hate seeing people working at jobs they hate. They are like minions. They're working for so little pay, not being respected. That's always just really pissed me off. So that's why I liked working with female entrepreneurs, because I wanted to give them a foundation to like have the freedom to do what they love. But this is a much more concrete way to do that. So what is your calling, your cosmic calling? It's basically like this force in the universe that's pulling you towards what is meant for you. And we avoid it a lot. We can't hear it a lot. We get distracted a lot. And that's unfortunate. Intuition is just starting to be more valued in our society, but that's really what it takes to tap into it. And a lot of us are cut off from that. So I see astrology as like a tool to get your calling laid out before you on a chart more tangibly. So it's not just floating around in your head, but it's actually like, yes, you are meant to do this. And it's all just written in the stars this whole time.
Wonderful. Okay, I actually want to back up just a step in case someone is listening to this who has no idea what we're talking about. Maybe let's even start with like, what is your birth chart? Because that's something that's sort of come up a little bit, and then how that relates to a cosmic calling. Because I'm seeing the connection. I know I'm very easily going to go over. We're going to go over everyone's head really fast. I think the two of us together. So let's bring it back, like a birth chart and how that relates to cosmic calling.
Yes, awesome. So your birth chart is actually showing you a map of where the planets were when you were born, and it falls in different zones of the sky, and each zone has its own characteristics. So the idea is that the moment you were born, you're imprinted with these different characteristics, and it's very specific and in-depth, like crazy, scary, weird, awesome. So you basically, all you need is your date, time, and location of birth. It's really important to have the exact time because you could find out the wrong things about yourself because the chart changes pretty quickly by the minutes. And it will tell you everything you've ever wanted to know about yourself. And so there's many ways you can use it. You can use it for relationships, for parenting, health even. Like, it's endless, really. And I just decided to use it for your career.
I love it. And my experience of this, I mentioned earlier, astrology nerd. Like, I've been studying astrology for years for personal use only. I don't read anyone's charts. Usually if you can get a couple of drinks into me at a party and someone brings it up, I will attempt it for sure. But I'm not practiced enough to be able to put those things in words often. I'm the really annoying person who will just like look at your chart and then like groan or grunt or like say, oh, and those, but I can't tell you why.
You just feel it.
I just feel it, and it annoys everyone around me. So I've been studying astrology for a long time, and what you are saying has been my experience with learning about my own birth chart and really just sort of understanding the things that motivate me, the things that excite me, the things that make me feel nurtured, the things that make me feel angry, like that's going to trigger me, those sorts of things. And there are so many different sides of this. And I say this too as someone who, like, y'all been listening to the podcast, you know, I'm incredibly analytical. I love some metrics, all of these things, but I also can really tap into that astrology side and see and feel the things that are really given to us by where the planets are whenever we were born. And it's all very nuanced and incredibly interesting. And I'm so glad that these days there are so many resources for us to tap into to learn about any and all of these things. So I do recommend, and it's so trendy right now. It is definitely like bubbled to the surface of sort of the collective, I'll say consciousness, because like the internet even is just, everyone is sharing horoscope reports and all of these things. And I've used it along the way to validate some of my experiences as well. One of the things that came up for me is whenever I was experiencing my, 2-ish years of burnout, I was going through an incredibly hard Pluto transit, which like, if anyone knows, you know, but if you don't, you're like, Emily's crazy right now. Right? So like you experience these things, you don't know why they're happening, whatever it may be, questioning yourself and the universe. But whenever you can look at your birth chart, you say, oh, like there are these things that are happening. And it's, for sort of a grander design, which for me makes me feel a little more grounded and connected and all of those things. If someone is looking to look up their birth chart for maybe the first time, where do you recommend they go?
You can pretty much just do a Google search and just say free birth chart online and you'll find one, and you just have to type in your date, time, and location of birth and it will pop up. It is a little challenging to learn though, I will say. That's why most people go to somebody.
Yep. It's going to be a whole bunch of symbols on a big circle and you're not probably going to know what in the world you're looking at for sure. Yep. But that's where the fun comes in. Either you're someone like me who just like dives face first into learning the new thing, or find someone that you can trust to give you a really good reading. And for any purpose, right? The purpose of your chart is that it really shows you every aspect of your life. You focus on career, but you can also look at all kinds of different places. So you mentioned earlier Capricorn, your 5 planets, the idea that that's where you saw your cosmic calling. Are there any other sort of little things that we should be looking for whenever looking at our charts for the purpose of recognizing our cosmic calling?
Yes. So as an astrologer, I like to look at everything on your chart, because my goal is really to bring together all the different parts of yourself into one thing, ideally. But if you're just getting started and you're learning about it on your own, you can start by decoding just your sun, moon, and rising, which a lot of people know these days. So I wouldn't be surprised if the people listening are like, yep, I know that. But also looking at which houses those points are in. So like, which house is your sun in? Which house is your moon in? And house is really just another word for like subsection of the chart, which clarifies the different areas of life. So for example, I'm a Pisces, but my sun is in my 3rd house of social networking. So that shows me that I'm meant to inspire people. That's what Pisces do, through the messages I share in a way that's simple and easy for people to understand. So that the sun is like your core. It's really like how you express yourself the best. A lot of people get so excited about astrology and they get past the sun and they're like, oh, everybody knows the sun, let's move on. But it really is like the core of who you are. So it's a great place to start. And then your moon sign is your emotional landscape. So this is what you need to feel happy and fulfilled in your life and work. And it really shows the circumstances that you need to be happy. So some people love working from home. Some people like working on a team. Some people want to be left alone and just travel the world. Like, we all have our different things that make us happy. So it's helpful to see it written down on the chart. And then your rising sign is so helpful because it actually shows the role that you're here to play, or the physical work that you're meant to do for a living. And the rising sign is marked with AS or AC on the chart if you're looking for it. And it's so helpful because mine is Sagittarius rising. So my job is actually to be a guide or a mentor. And that's the part I was really missing, because I was just making graphics for people. But I noticed that I loved making the tutorials. And then, so I just kind of leaned into that. And now I just share information and inspiration with people. And then if you want to keep going, all the other points on your chart can help fill in the blanks on how to do this work. So like Mercury is your communication style, Venus is what you value, Mars is what motivates you. And any one of these things could be out of alignment, which could leave you feeling demotivated, unhappy, low energy, right? So the chart also can give you a little prescription on how to get excited again about life.
Lovely. But why does it matter? So what is the purpose of diving into these things and learning these things about yourself and really aligning yourself with your cosmic calling in terms of where the planets were? What's the difference there, and why should we care?
Yeah, so if you're out of alignment with your astrology chart, you're going to be unhappy. And so that's why we use astrology, is to find that and then, do what we're meant to do. Because when you do what you're meant to do, what you were born to do, what you're wired to do because of the planets and where they were, you're going to be excited. You're going to be thrilled. I experienced so much more joy than I ever knew was possible when I started actually living my chart. And that can be the tricky thing, is it's one thing to learn your chart and it's another thing to live it. You might have to make some really big life changes, like leaving your career or your relationship or your home or whatever. But you can do it. You have the boost from your chart. Yes. And also it's going to feel good because everything on your chart is already how you want to feel. So it's just telling you and confirming it for you. Nobody really gets a reading and they're like, oh, that's not what I want to do. Darn it. Gonna have to get a new chart next time. I don't know. We love it. We've wanted it our whole lives. So it's exciting when it's finally revealed.
If you're on the lookout for ways to help your business sell smoothly from one quarter to the next, look no further. Hubspot helps your business get shipshape with an easy-to-use CRM platform that aligns your business and delivers a seamless experience for your customers. Other CRMs can be cobbled together, but HubSpot is carefully crafted in-house for businesses like yours. Its purpose-built suite of operations, sales, service, and marketing tools work together seamlessly so you and your team can focus on what really matters, your customers. Plus, with helpful educational content, a supportive community, and access to hundreds of app integrations, HubSpot's all-in-one platform is built to grow with you. Learn how to grow better by connecting your people, your customers, and your business at HubSpot.com. When building a business you're passionate about, it's easy to feel like there aren't enough hours in the day. And if you're doing all of your own invoicing and accounting, that's probably a lot of time you're spending on work you might not love. Well, good news, my friends. FreshBooks is built for business owners like you. It's the all-in-one accounting software that saves entrepreneurs and freelancers up to 11 hours a week. That's 11 hours you can spend doing literally anything else, from serving your customers and honing your craft to hustling out a side project or planning your next vacation. From building, sending, and following up on invoices to managing expenses, FreshBooks automates and simplifies all the tough and annoying parts of running your own business. Try FreshBooks free for 30 days with no credit card required by going to freshbooks.com/beingboss to get started today. I feel like what you're talking about here, and I've never quite put these together in quite this way, but one of the things we talk about often here at Being Boss is unlearning conditioning, right? Especially if you are leaving your corporate jobs, or, if you grew up being told that, doing your art is not as, promising of a career as if you become a doctor or whatever it may be. A lot of people listening to this have left things behind in a process of unlearning. And I feel like part of that conversation is often if I just had a blueprint of who I am, right? If I knew what parts of what isn't mine and what I need to unlearn so that I can get more centered in myself. And I feel like your birth chart is exactly that. It is the blueprint of who you are. If you remove, what your mom told you growing up and what your kindergarten teacher told you that one time that never left you, or the influence of your friends or the people in your life or whatever it may be, if you could remove all of that and just be you, just had a blueprint of who you are, you could more easily align. And literally your birth chart is that.
Yes. When you're unhappy, you're literally going against the cosmic order. That's why things don't really work out for you as well when you're not in alignment. And it's also really cool because you have a business chart. So if you're confused about making decisions in your business, because I swear that is what running a business is constantly making really hard decisions. All day, every day, right?
Indeed.
And so that, you can use a chart for anything. So it also helped me with my business too. It's branding and colors and offerings and things like that. So it just takes away so much work you would spend experimenting and failing and just go straight to what you're here to do, which is also going to allow you to make a bigger difference in the world. And that's another thing I love about it. What I do is I help people find their ideal career so they can just go and do it and help tons and tons of people in a way that they wouldn't have been able to if they didn't realize that this was what they were meant to do.
Okay, this is really off script, but as you're talking about this, I'm having a thought here. Do you have any stories or any examples of people that you have helped who were so misaligned when they came to you that they had to make some sort of dramatic shift in what came of that?
Yeah, that does often happen. But the thing is, your chart is also going to show you why you were drawn to the career you're in, too. So it's never like, what have you been doing? Like, where have you been? It's kind of like, oh, I see why you've been a lawyer. You care about justice and fairness. But the energy of being a lawyer, it could also be used for a yoga teacher, believe it or not, because it's about balance and alignment as well. I'm thinking of the sign of Libra. And so... yeah, it's hard to say because I don't always get to follow up with people afterwards. I kind of just give them the inspiration and the clues, and I'm like, go do it. But I would imagine a lot of people have to change a lot of things after we talk.
I bet so. And on the other side of this, if everyone's listening to this is like, okay, I don't know what my birth chart is. I'm probably doing it all wrong. What I often find, though, is that bosses in particular, those of us who are here, who are like, practicing self-awareness, we are, at least to some extent, like connected to our intuition. And, you're down for breaking the rules, right? And unlearning some things and doing things your own way. We're the kinds of people who usually pretty easily like self-align. Right? Without needing too many nudges along the way. So that's something that I often find with bosses is we're usually aligning ourselves quite nicely.
Yeah, I do have a lot of clients too where I'm like, yes, you're doing it, keep going. And then we can just go on to the timing of things, which is nice. So yeah, the thing is, if you're out of alignment, you are. So it's not going to be a surprise. It's not like you're going to come to a session and I'm going to totally ruin your whole life with the information. It's like you're coming because you're confused.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, love this. So maybe some tips then. If anyone's listening to this and you're like, okay, it's time for me to like really figure it out. see what's happening in my birth chart. What are some tips that you have for someone who is seeking out getting their birth chart read for the first time?
Well, definitely make sure you have the right time. That's super important. But other than that, I would just say try to be really open-minded because it's probably going to fill in the blanks of things that you thought you knew but didn't fully know. So yeah, just being open. I look at the astrology reading as being like a discovery session where we're kind of uncovering clues together. And then how they all come together is up to you. So look at it as like brainstorming. And then afterwards, you might need to take time, like years even, to reflect on what you learn because it's a lot. And nobody's just going to like be aligned overnight after having a reading. There's a lot of work that goes into it, but it's worth it, right? Because it's like you end up being happier and more excited.
Yeah, for sure. And something came up for me too, as you were saying this. I think it's important to be open, but I also think that like anything, like going to a therapist for the first time or getting your tarot cards read for the first time or going to a business coach for the first time, whatever it may be, I think it's important to be open, but also incredibly connected to yourself. Because astrology in particular, but I can also just as easily draw a parallel with business coaching, where anyone that you're going to for any sort of advice or, a reading or whatever, they have their own perceptions, they have their own experiences, they have their own, lens through which they're going to look at your business or your birth chart or whatever it may be. And they're going to share with you what they see through that lens. But if things don't connect with you, then you can leave those behind, right? Yes. So I even think, if someone comes in, like a business coach came in and was like, you should be, doing this, this, and this because they read a book once about how that was very beneficial. And what I do was kind of similar. I might be like, okay, I can take some nuggets from that, but I'm not going to take that completely literally. That's something that I also see in astrology and is probably even easier to do because there are an infinite number of ways for anything to be sort of manifested. in astrology, and you have to be just as connected to yourself when going into those readings as well.
Yes, there's definitely free will. But I don't also think people expect astrology readings to be a little bit different than how they actually are. Because when I am describing the parts of your chart, I would say you make a good guide. You really like working on a team, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not always like, here's how you have to do it, right? So it's a little bit more loose and floaty. Some people don't like that. They're like, tell me my exact path. But I do try to leave it open to interpretation, right? So I'm not telling you exactly the specifics, but I'm telling you the energy behind it. And then you need to kind of look at your own experiences and your own interests. And I do ask about those before the session too, because I want to tie it to what you already are thinking about doing. But yeah, it's not always like some people might be afraid to get a reading because they're like, I don't want them to tell me what to do. And what if I don't want to do it? It's actually much more broad than that. Like you get motivated by making a big difference in other people's lives, things like that.
Wonderful. Okay, perfect. Then I would love to hear how your cosmic calling has been playing out in your life. Because you mentioned a couple little things along the way, but would love some like real life experiences and even a look at like once you know your cosmic calling, how do you continue sort of following your chart through the actions that you're taking every day, month, and year? So I think to begin, what I want to start with is actually that moment that you said that you realized that you would be finding out your cosmic calling like that week. And there you were. What was happening? What was that?
Yeah, so what that felt like was super excited to learn astrology. Like when that happens, it's actually based on the planet Jupiter, which is the planet of joy and abundance and excitement. So I felt like so much joy and excitement. It actually scared me because I had literally almost just died and I lost 30 pounds and I was a shell of a person. So to feel this excitement like coursing through my veins, I was like, this is weird and really cool. So yeah, how it has played out in my life, it's a good question because I think people are like, okay, when I find my life purpose, I'll be good to go. But the thing is, your calling is always evolving. So just like how I was explaining how different points on your chart, I describe the energy of it, but not specifically what to do with it. You can express your chart in different ways as well. That's the fun of it. That's the free will of it. And so as I've grown my astrology business, I've still been an astrologer, but the way I do my work has shifted over time as I find like what keeps that joy alive and what kind of starts to make me feel frustrated or I'm not excited to do something. Then I have to go look at my chart and be like, where am I getting off track here? There's also the idea of tracking your transits, which you mentioned earlier. So once you have your I want to say basic astrology chart, but it's pretty complex. You can compare it with where the planets are in the sky right now and in the future to see different things you might have to go through. So big challenges, big opportunities you might have, and that's going to shape you and help you evolve and grow even more. So it just really never ends, but it's helpful to know like which path so that when you are feeling confused, you have something to look at and turn to. Even if it's like a day you wake up and you're like, why do I feel terrible today? You can see where the moon is. And it just helps explain a lot of things about how you feel, how you're going to feel. So you can plan around that too. And you're not caught off guard by the universe, but you're working in tune with it.
Yeah. Another one of the sort of nuggets that I love about astrology and transits in particular, which is comparing your birth chart to where the planets currently are, is that, you know, all the planets, well, we know everything happens in cycles, right? That's something we talk about here. I talk about seasonal living quite often. That's another cycle that we are connected to. One of the things I love about studying astrology and connecting with transits is seeing those cycles repeating themselves. Right? So things like if a transit is happening now, you can look at, you know, let's say a Jupiter transit, look at what was happening when that planet was doing the same thing 12 years ago and sort of look at these threads and sort of see the like breadcrumbs of your life sort of threading themselves through, which is two metaphors that I'm putting in there right there together, threading themselves through your life to, again, just sort of make sense of things, to see why and how things are going to be coming back up. Make sense of all those, Mercury retrogrades that everyone's so obsessed with right now, but probably not super aligned with what they mean. It's really fascinating to put your life and your experiences in the context of literally the solar system, and see how those things thread themselves through and express themselves. And it, like I said earlier, it makes me feel like super connected, but also like incredibly unique in a way that, I don't know, is way more fun than just reading my email.
Yeah, it's really nice to know there's a divine order to things.
Yeah.
There is actually a plan here. And I don't know about you guys, but it just makes me feel really comforted because I grew up being really intuitive, but not knowing that that wasn't necessarily normal. Like I would dream about things before it happened, and I would just know things, and didn't know why I knew it. And it's even written on my astrology chart that I have that gift. So it's just like really helpful to be confirmed in a lot of ways that it just wouldn't be able to be otherwise. Like no one can say like, yes, you are psychic, and no, it's not normal that you dream about things. And not everyone does that. So the chart, it also just shows you how special you are. And that's important, especially with social media and comparison and all of that. It's like you have your own niche. And it's so helpful to know it. You just like make decisions faster. You can do what you're here to do faster, have fun with it. When you're having fun with what you do, you magnetize people to it more easily. So it's a win-win. Win-win.
Right. Wins all around. Let's talk about writing your book then, because you made this transition several years ago. You've had a podcast for a couple of years. Tell me about the book. Did someone come to you? Did you pitch it? Did you always know you were going to write a book? Was it in your chart that you were going to do it right now? What was that like?
Yeah, so I always wanted to write a book because I was always getting booked out with readings, and each one takes quite a lot of time to go through. And so I wasn't helping as many people as I wanted to because I only have so much energy. So I actually started writing the book and was studying like, how do you get a book published? I don't know. And then I decided to put it on the back burner for a while, just to work on other projects. And I decided to put it on the back burner, but a week later, I got an email asking me if I wanted to write a book. And I was like,
course
yes,
you did.
As a matter of fact, I've already written it. And I just had to go through and actually shorten it a lot because my book was going to be twice as big. And that was actually helpful, I think, because the final book is easy to understand now. It's just like what the basics of what you need to know, which will hopefully inspire you to want to dive deeper on your own after.
Wonderful. So was it always going to be find your cosmic calling? Did it like need to meander there, or was that the nuggets that just came pouring out of your brain?
Yeah, I definitely wanted to write a book that would take someone through the exact process that I took people through in my readings. I didn't have that exact name planned out, but yeah, I had the outline, everything. It's just the same as going through an astrology reading. So it was really easy to write, actually. I mean, it's hard to sit down for that many hours and actually bring it out, but it was all inside of me. So I just had to like sit down and do it.
Right. I could imagine that for someone like you in the field that you're doing, who's like working so consistently to be so aligned with your work, that it would just fall out of your brain once you sat down to do it. I love it. I have peeked through the book and read the first several chapters of it. And I agree that it's such an easy primer to get you going. And I've read tons of astrology books. I think it's one of the most easily digestible that I have ever read. And I love that it really is in this niche of finding what it is that you are meant to do. Because I think that is so important, and especially for our boss crowd, is really like that's why you're all probably kind of listening to this podcast in some context, right? You want to do something. And so I love that there is that niche of it, that it's not this sort of broad, like fill your brain with more with astrology things, which I think most people find incredibly overwhelming, but really is a very practical guide to use astrology for the purpose of finding what it is that you're supposed to be doing.
Yes, and peeling back the layers and having the clues right in front of you too. My hope is that you won't just like read the book, although that would be great, but to actually like revisit it often and check in with yourself and be like, am I actually doing this or not? Because it's a process, it's a practice. It's not just like you wake up one day and you are or you aren't. It's just, yeah, coming back to, it's like it's a form of your intuition in a way.
Oh, for sure. Oh, and I want a second. Absolutely. Get the physical book, because astrology books are the kinds of things that I go back to over and over again. I always regret it whenever I think, oh, I'll just get the Kindle version. No, astrology books need to be in physical form because you are going to use them as reference tools. Perfect. So this book baby is out in the world. Congratulations. It is beautiful and very well written. What is next for you?
Yeah, so something I'm finding as I've been helping more people find their calling is they realize, oh, I should start a business, and then they don't know what to do, or they're not used to that. They've been working in a job. And so I'm putting together a program on helping you use your astrology chart to plan out your business in a more practical way. So like your branding and marketing and getting on podcasts and getting featured in press, but all doing it from a place of you being super in tune with your own unique niche, because that's what makes everything else work so much faster. You stand out more. And so I have a whole program that takes you through, it's based on the zodiac signs, and it takes you through all the different areas of your business. So that's what I'm working on next. And I'm also really interested in teaching people astrology so they can become their own astrologer, not only because there's only one of me and I'm tired sometimes, even though I love what I do, but also because I feel like anyone could learn this. Like I didn't even finish college. I hated math and science and geometry and all of that. And I could figure this out. So I just feel like other people could too if they had the right teacher and resources.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. I love that you're going into business astrology. You brought this up earlier. The idea that your business has a chart, and also projects. Have you figured out the chart for your book yet?
It's tricky because there's different stages. There's like when you sign the contract, there's when the book actually comes out. And it's important to use the date of when you actually decided the idea was going to become real. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if I really looked at my book necessarily, but I've looked at my business, and the book is in my business's chart. So I kind of just go with that.
Love it. I love it. I do recommend anyone who's interested, maybe you're already in touch with your birth chart, want to take it even further, pull your birth chart for your business, for a project like a book. I have, in one of my apps, I have the Being Boss book, birth chart for the book in there. I check in on it often, see how it's doing, see what's up with it. It's a really fascinating way to similarly see what's happening in your business with a project that you've done in terms of, cosmic movements, and just sort of takes, a love affair with astrology a step further if you so choose.
Yeah. It also really helps you know what to focus on.
Yeah.
So if you have a million ideas, it's like, okay, the sun is in this house right now. This month, just work on this. And that is really helpful too. Right.
And you do that because literally the universe energetically is supporting you in this thing, right? It's not necessarily, and again, there is free will. It's not looking at the sun and being like, okay, you're here, I must do that. But it's looking at the sun and going, if I want to do this, I am energetically supported in doing this. So why not?
Yes. The weird thing is you probably want to do it though, naturally. And then you look at your chart and you're like, oh, that's why.
Indeed. Indeed. The more in tune you are, the more you don't even need to look unless you just, want to look to prove yourself right.
Yeah, that's the kind of the hard thing about astrology is a lot of people are like, where's the proof? We can't prove this. But the proof is in your own personal experiences.
Yeah.
So that's hard to measure sometimes.
Right. Which is also completely fine sometimes to not need to measure it, just feel it.
Yeah. Trust.
Indeed. Perfect. Natalie, this has been such a treat. I love that I love that we have been connected for sure. I love that you have written this book and is in the world, and that anyone can read through it and look at their chart and gauge their own cosmic calling. That is definitely like one of the things that we are here doing at Being Boss, encouraging you to find the thing that brings you so much joy that you don't mind doing the work and you get paid well to do it. And that we were able to have this chat and that you're moving into business astrology. This one has been a fun one for me. Thank you for coming to hang out.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. If you will, please tell people where they can find more about you and your new book, baby.
Yes, so you can find out more about me at soulshineastrology.com. My book is called Find Your Cosmic Calling. You can find it most bookstores, Amazon, etc. And if you want to listen to my podcast, it's called The Cosmic Calling.
Perfect. And last but definitely not least, what is making you feel most boss these days?
Just feeling really aligned in my calling, basically. Yeah, it makes me feel like I'm not missing anything. I'm on the right track. I'm doing the right things. Like that right there, I think is boss.
Indeed. I completely agree with that. Thanks so much. This has been so much fun.
Thank you, Emily.
As a business owner, you likely have a website. And as a website owner, you likely want more Google traffic. But SEO or search engine optimization is likely not at the top of your long list of to-dos. But I'm telling you right now that it should be a priority for each and every one of us. And with the help of Ahrefs Webmaster Tools, getting your website found just got a lot faster and easier. Ahrefs Webmaster Tools is a free resource that will audit your website and prioritize the changes you need to make to improve your search rankings. You'll see which keywords your pages are ranking for, understand how Google sees your content, and discover how making changes can increase your organic traffic, which means more leads and sales for your business. It will do a full audit for you and keep working for you for free. Visit ahrefs.com/AWT for this free tool. That's ahrefs.com/AWT, ahrefs.com/AWT, or find a link in our show notes and help your website be a better asset for your business. Now, until next time, do the work, be boss.
Yeah.